What's up, Las Vegas? I am sitting here with my good friend Dave Burlin, where this episode should have happened probably months ago, and maybe I'm gonna have to blame a little bit because he has been holding my episode on his show hostage for the last few months.
That's true.
Dave is the podcast. He's a podcast host of the Dave Means Business podcast. He is a veteran of the Marine Corps. He is an ambassador of the Las Vegas Bunker Labs chapter, and he's the community organizer for Global Entrepreneurship Week, as well as a keynote speaker. This man is a pure entrepreneur in its most finest form. Anytime I go to any network event, this guy's name gets brought up constantly. So I'm glad we could finally do this, Dave. Welcome to the guest list.
Dude, thanks, man. It's great to be here. Great to be here.
Welcome back to Las Vegas. As I didn't mention this in the introduction, but Dave is also from Tulsa, Oklahoma, or previously lived there, where he had worked on Startup Tulsa for a long time. And I think that's why you translate so well out here, because you're on the foundation of the startup world in Tulsa. And now you see some of the similarities echoed out here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, 100%, man. After a recent trip to Tulsa, I really got a chance to see what's happened there in the last 5 years. You know, for 5 years ago, people didn't know about Tulsa, and anyone that did, they swore up and down it was an oil and gas town. It's changed so much, and to get to see, to be a big part of that and be involved in the ecosystem development out there and be attending all the events, that was huge. But after being gone for almost 3 years now and getting to go back and see it really come to life, it's been amazing.
What brought you out to Oklahoma? And actually, you might as well we'll just go back to the beginning. We'll hit the rewind button. Tell us a little bit about yourself, being a military vet and combining that with the entrepreneurship world that you find yourself in.
Yeah, man. It's funny because every time somebody reads like, oh, he's also this, and this, and there's always a lot of titles, but man, I'm just passionate about building communities, and I'm really excited to see things take shape. Right. And I love being a visionary and sharing that. But my entrepreneurial journey goes all the way back as far as I can remember. Baseball cards and all that stuff. I wasn't slinging them like Gary Vee by any means, but we collected them, and it was like this. We could sell them, but I came from a really small community. We'll say that I had my own business in high school, but we won't talk about those businesses. But no, it's all stuff that I've learned along the way that you can always, learn a skill, have a service or a product or something. And there's people that want that or that need that. And I think I suppressed the entrepreneurial thing for a long time. I went to the military. I worked for a couple different companies, and ultimately that's what always break through. I'm pretty disruptive, right? I don't like to color inside the lines. I like to, draw my own. So that's where the passion for entrepreneurship and especially ecosystems like Las Vegas really excite me. That's where I want to spend more time building communities and helping people start and grow businesses.
So I've had on a few military veterans turned entrepreneurs, and this seems to be like a growing trend in America. What is it about the military that breeds entrepreneurs?
Well, I think it's important for veterans to know that the skills that we learned in the military, they are applicable to startups, and they're applicable to existing organizations. A lot of people, they will go work for somebody else, but sometimes there's that little creative spirit that says, I don't want to just work for somebody else anymore. And anytime they can take an idea and apply it to something that generates income, there's this aha moment that happens there. And then whenever they start putting things together, a lot of the planning and resources and all the things that we learned in the military, not just the hard skills, but the soft skills too, they are applicable. And they do work well in the world of startups, not just tech startups, but any kind of business, product, service, any of that stuff. They're able to take it to market faster, but they're also okay with changing the plan. Right? When it needs to change. They're not married to any certain thing, because I think it's like what Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until you get, hit
until you get punched in the face. Yeah.
It's the same thing in the military, no plan survives first contact. So it's one of those things that if you have a good plan, you can put that into action. We're in a lot safer environment here in the United States. But a lot of times when you can apply that stuff, if it takes off at all, it normally gets a lot of traction behind it.
Yeah, that is an appropriate translation, because when you're in the startup world, and this is a common known factor, that most entrepreneurs don't succeed at the first try, at your first shot. I mean, you could be in the right place at the right time, right. And that's a huge component of succeeding, is that timing component, which when you look back to things like MySpace and Friendster, right? They had the right idea, but they were just way too early in the space. And so same thing comes to combat, right? On the ground, you could be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that same strategy that you had implemented will not succeed unless you have some sort of counterpoint.
100%. And I think that's where the important lies then with your network and the community. And that's two of my favorite things.
Right. I mean, you are also a host of the Dave Means Business podcast, and also you have a running hashtag that you use all the time. It's hashtag something means network, right? Or what is it?
Yeah, WhyNetworking.
WhyNetworking. Yeah. Can you extrapolate on that idea?
Yeah, WhyNetworking is really, it's kind of I don't want to say the end all. It's really a collaboration of all the experiences that I've ever had. Whether it be the experience in being in business, growing businesses, speaking, all that stuff. A lot of the things that I've learned were all through books and other people's content, right? So I'm a huge fan of personal and professional development. So I've always got a book on me. I've always got something that I'm listening to. It's my favorite questions to ask. But WhyNetworking is essentially my own intellectual property that has been a result of all of the things that I've learned in life and business over the last 20 years probably, but I really started putting that message into focus. What was it? 2017. So 2017, I hit this weird point in my life and my business where, unfortunately, I started going through a divorce. The divorce was predicated on my lifestyle as an entrepreneur. And with that, the first time that somebody asked me to speak after the topic that I'd been speaking about actually for the last 2 years, from 15 to 17, was all about coming to Vegas, right? We wanted to be part of the Zappos family, had read Tony Hsei's book back whenever I was growing a business in Tulsa. I helped the wedding DJ business expand all over the Midwest. And when we read that book, I shared it with my wife, ex-wife now, and we were just caught by all of the amazing things that Tony was building in the community and all that stuff. So that's what I'd been talking about for like 2.5 years. And then whenever I found out that marriage was going to be coming to an end, the first time that somebody asked me to speak, I realized that this just hasn't affected my personal life. That's my professional life too. Like, what am I going to talk about? And that's what I asked. Like, what am I supposed to talk about? And somebody said, well, you're really good at building relationships. Why don't you talk about that? And that's where the idea of WhyNetworking was born. I come from listening to great people like Simon Sinek and lots of big thought leaders. And I've actually done a lot of work with the organization at Simon Sinek, worked on some projects, got some great friends over there. And to me, that just seemed to be a deeper level to connection. So that's what I've been talking about for the last 3 years, 4 years.
So what is the average individual commonly missing when it comes to networking, right? It seems like it's something that everyone participates in every day, whether you're networking with your family or your friend or your colleagues at the school. You'd think that everybody would have exceptional networking skills, but obviously this isn't the case. So what is the common individual generally missing?
Well, I want to have a little bit of fun with that, because it's funny, because I'll go ahead and cross the streams here. And I know we're talking about networking, but I'm also going to talk about dating, and there's a reason why. It's all relative to what you define as networking, dating, prospecting. Like, there's all these definitions that go out there, and I think some people just they're not missing anything. They just have a different frame of what they call it, right? So I was talking to some friends when I was back in Tulsa, and everyone has dating struggles. Every community has the same struggles. It's hard to date in the city for whatever reason. But I always ask people, so what does dating mean to you? And the reason why this is so funny is because it's all about building relationships, as is networking. So I started asking people, what do you hate about networking? Because that's where you really find the level of what people are missing. And a lot of people just say, I hate being pitched. I hate going to a networking event and feeling like I'm being sold. So what a lot of people are missing are the questions that don't give people permission to pitch you, right? And to me, that's the quality of everything. It's the quality of relationships are going to be based on the questions that you ask. The worst question that you can ask somebody in a networking situation, if you're truly networking, is what do you do? Because that will instinctually give them the opportunity to start pitching what they do. And the true definition and challenge between networking and prospecting are two totally different things. That was the big aha. And it's funny because I've been talking about this for 3 years. I just found that one little caveat back in January, just a couple of months ago, where I really looked at the definition of networking versus prospecting. See, prospecting is about putting somebody into a sales process and trying to convert them from being a prospect into being a client. Right. So it's very much about the sales prospect or the process, and everyone has a frame of reference for what the sales process is, regardless of what methodology they use. They might use Sandler. They might use rapport, needs, benefits, close, whatever their process is, they have one. There's not one for networking. So that's what I've tried to create in having principles, is trying to remove that of just trying to close people, because networking by definition, I might paraphrase it a little bit, but it's building positive relationships in life or business.
That makes complete sense. It's good to differentiate the different sections of networking, because when it comes to sales, I didn't realize this until I talked with a few different marketing and sales experts, that there's two different types of marketing, right? Or branding, I should say. There's personal branding, and then there's branding and sales for your business, right? And if you're personally branding or you're selling yourself, that's a multi-year process, and you never actually come up with a call to action. It's just you presenting information to somebody, and then they feel more affectionate towards you, or they have a little bit more rapport. Where if you have a business and you're trying to market your business, generally there's some sales pitch. There's hey, this product's $19.99 if you buy now, or 2 for 1, or stop in today, or something of that nature. So then when you take that idea and you translate it over to networking, right? There's prospecting, where that would be similar to LinkedIn, where there's people just constantly sending you DMs like, hey, we need this person to fill this position. We saw your qualifications. It seems like you're a perfect fit. But if you're building relationships that are going to extend past that first direct meeting, you need to have some sort of rapport. You need to have some sort of relation, and you don't want to come off as that used car salesman, as everyone finds so cringy.
Yeah. Well, and that's where people start to feel sold. And I've seen it happen a million times, right? So, hey, what do you do? And you start to talk about what you do. And when I nod my head and acknowledge any of it, there's this thing in your brain that says, oh, this might be a potential client. And then we go into this prospecting mode. And what we're slowly trying to do is set the next appointment or whatever it might be. All I'm trying to do is replace that, and not even replace it totally, just put another process side by side. After, I've been doing this organically, I've been building relationships my whole life. I think we all have. Where I really started to understand the power of intention was whenever I set a really big goal for myself. Actually, most of the big goals that I've set for myself were achieved, but it wasn't through me. It was through somebody in my network, right? When I first got home from the Marines, I wanted to work at this youth academy in my hometown. I wanted to give back, right? They were at-risk youth. I was at-risk youth. I really wanted to be that for them, but I knew nobody that worked at the program. As soon as I got home, I started telling everybody, hey, I'm trying to get a job here. Ran into an old friend that I was roommates with in like 1997. She'd been married since then, and I went out to dinner with her and her husband. And when he asked what I was going to be doing, I told him I wanted to get a job at Thunderbird Youth Academy. And he just looked at me with these very giving eyes. And he goes, one of my best friends and fraternity brothers from college is one of the supervisors over there. And literally in one phone call, I had the interview, right? And that was just through my network. So I look at all these different ways that I've always contributed to other people. And I always go into relationships and expect nothing in return. But there's not like a process for that. So what I came up with were principles that don't replace the sales process. They just put a process with with building relationships, and it's to expect nothing in return, because the currency in sales is it's based on, if you talk to 100 people, you might close 2. Yeah, you might. But if you talk to 10 people, you might unlock hundreds of opportunities and relationships. Maybe not today. Some people might think, oh, based on what you do right now and based on the people I know right now, I definitely want to introduce you to somebody. You've done a great job I've watched you just completely connect the right people at the right times, because that's what you do. But some people don't know that that's okay, right? They think that, well, if it's not a transactional thing that I can benefit from today, I don't need it. But if there's one thing that COVID showed us, is that nobody's immune to losing their job. The business cards that we pass out today may not be the same business card we pass out 6 months from now, 2 years from now. But it's funny because I've seen relationships come full circle 3 years later, where it's like, hey, here's all the opportunities that you need.
It's that timing component is really important. The currency of an effective networker isn't something like fiat currency, something tangible. It's intangible. It's social capital, right?
Yeah.
If you're effective at meeting individuals, you invest your social capital in them. And as you mentioned, that social equity that you receive in return is redeemable much farther down the road. And it usually isn't in the form of a dollar that you generally get paid out by your wage job. It's generally some sort of referral, or that, as you mentioned, that untapped network that person exists in with the people above them and below them, which it's something you just can't perceive when you're engaging with someone, because you don't understand what they do or how they are. And most of the time when you are networking, and I've begun to feel this a little bit, where, you go to 3 networking events in a week or 5 in a week, and you're like, man, I don't even remember what I talked about. But what you do remember is how that person made you feel. Were you very engaged with them? Were you feeling inspired? Were you feeling motivated? Were you immediately turned off because they became very pitchy and salesman-like? Those are the relationships that you have to build. And that's why networking and entrepreneurship goes hand in hand, because as we see, a lot of startup incubators are being built out around the country. Obviously, Y Combinator is like the best one to exist, but the city wants to build out, of Las Vegas wants to build out its own startup incubator and get that all tapped in. And so it comes down to knowing your network, because if you're an entrepreneur or even a solopreneur, the amount of success in a solopreneur is much lower than an entrepreneur is tapped into the right network with the right resources.
100%. No, 100%. And that's the other part too, is, it really does depend on what, whenever things don't work out, you always have your network to, somewhat fall back on, as far as they're going to be the people that introduce you to the next opportunity or the next connection. So to me, it's always been a challenging thing to explain to people, because they're like, what's the ROI? And I'm like, sometimes you won't see one. Like today, you won't see one until it comes full circle years from now. What I do know is that somebody used this term, and I liked it. I'm an influence broker, right? So yes, there are core products and services and things that I have a direct connection to because of my business or some of the clients that I work with. It might be in my best interest to promote their business because there's an incentive for me. But a lot of times it's really just, sometimes big deals happen because of the relationships that I, introduce people to, and sometimes they don't. But some of those do, bear fruit. But even if they don't, like if it's not a big check that I get in the mail, there's going to be an opportunity where I can reach out to that person. And if I need help with something, they're willing to help. Or one of the funniest things is it's not always currency in dollars. Sometimes it's just currency in amazing opportunities to participate in remarkable events that, it's been really great that some people reach out to me and they're like, hey man, you're the first person I thought of. Do you want to come to this grand opening thing at, Virgin Hotels, Dead Mouse is playing? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, you really never know those opportunities. I was actually just reached out to, DM'd by this individual who is putting together this entrepreneurship convention with Mike Tyson speaking and Sebastian Maniscalco and all these other individuals. And I asked him how he found me, and he said, I just typed in Vegas entrepreneur on Instagram and you popped up. And from that, this convention has thousands of people attending. And so it's like, you never know what may happen from that existence. But it also, I want to bring that back a little bit to what we were talking about with relationships. It's funny how society's progressed so far, and like where we're moving into this digital age and digital economy and influencer marketing and social media marketing. And still the best and most powerful form of marketing is word of mouth, right? Yep. We see all these reviews on Amazon products. One product could have 5,000 reviews, but then you ask your friend if they like the product or not. And if they say no, you're not going to buy it. So that one person has the power and the impact of 5,000 online reviews. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon or anytime in the near future.
Yeah. And I think it's really important because the currency comes from your reputation, right? I have done a lot of stuff on social media. I've went through different phases where I've done lots of video promotions and different things like that. But ultimately, it always goes back to people that know me and what people are saying not publicly on social media. And that's, oh, you should know Dave. Like, I don't even know why. Sometimes people are like, I don't know why, but like, I feel like Dave Burlin is the person you should talk to. A lot of people associate that with kind of anything veteran because that's part of who I am and what I'm passionate about. But it consistently blows me away, some of the connections and how it's like very specific. Like, hey, I was talking to this one random person and here's specifically why they said I should connect with you. And that's like a great connection. And that's somebody that I met like one time in a small, event or something like that. But there was a connection there, a connection that I didn't close because I tried to get an appointment or a deposit from them. Yeah. So it's amazing how much that really has.
Your name by far comes up the most at any networking event that I attend. But by far, you're probably double by the next name. As we were discussing before we started recording at Tech Alley, somebody brought your name up. I can't even remember who, but there's like something Dave Burlin. I was like, yeah, he's actually coming on my podcast in a few days. And they're like, oh, no way. But you are wearing a shirt that says Bunker Labs. Yeah. It's involved with veterans in Vegas and entrepreneurship and networking. Tell us a little bit about Bunker Labs and your involvement with it.
Yeah. Well, the funniest part is the story of how I came to wear this t-shirt. It's really random. It's happened just, we're recording this, July. It was just a couple of days ago that I had a 5-year memory, right? This was back when I was still in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was very involved with all the networking events and the ecosystem there, just always trying to plug in. Same thing. My name would come up a lot. And it was just because I was always out serving and connecting other people. I get this invite, and it's for a guy from a program called Bunker Labs is traveling the country, and he came to speak at one event in Tulsa. And when I looked up Bunker Labs and I saw their mission to help veterans and their families start and grow businesses, I was like, this is two things I really love. One, entrepreneurship. Two, veterans, right? A couple years before, in 2014, I did my first public talk ever, which was a TEDX talk, and it was about veteran transition. The interesting thing was, in the world of veteran transition, a lot of stuff steers towards post-traumatic stress, suicide prevention. And it's not that all that stuff isn't important. It's just, it's a really hard conversation to be in and live in all the time. I was looking for something that was more about post-traumatic growth, right? So entrepreneurship is something that I always, held high. I'd met some really incredible veteran entrepreneurs, and to hear there was a program that was about that, I was all for it. So this guy was coming for one event. So I'm like, I'm going to show this guy what's up and how we do Tulsa. So I actually created a series of events that week, and it happened to be the week like right after 4th of July. And I called it Freedom Week, right? Because I love marketing, I love branding. So I just called it Freedom Week. But at one of the co-working spaces, we turned that whole space into an art gallery for two veteran entrepreneurs that we got to open the art gallery. The Freedom Gallery is what we called it. There was a 1 Million Cups, which is a national event that happens Wednesday mornings. That guy was speaking Wednesday night. So I was like, let's just make Wednesday morning the two people that present. Let's make it veteran entrepreneurs. So we just tied this whole thing in. And I was like the biggest advocate for all things veteran entrepreneurship. In fact, at the beginning of this interview when I said, veterans need to know that what we learned in the military is applicable into startups. Like that's literally from Derek Distenfield, because I turned that whole series of events into a little micro documentary. It's like 8 minutes. It's all about veteran entrepreneurship. But he said that, right? That's very true. But that was my passion for it. And I was like, man, we got to get this program here. We got to get this program here. It was a lot different back then. Since that time, it's grown. At Bunker Labs, we actually have a partnership with WeWork. So for all the communities across the country that have a WeWork program or a WeWork facility, and there's a Bunker Labs, we have what's called the Veterans in Residence program. And that's basically where we give up to 10 businesses, veterans or their families that start up a business. We give them space for 6 months, and we do programming to help them start and grow their business. So like today, I had the huddle. It was at our office in WeWork Summerlin, and we are always just working on ways that we can help connect them to more resources, help them launch and hold events, whatever they need to be successful in that 6 months. That's what we're focused on. So I've been a champion for that organization way back from, my days in Tulsa. And because I'm always, knocking on every door, connecting with people, one of the first groups that I met out here was a program called American Dream U. Phil Randazzo, another great guy that if you haven't talked to Phil, he's an amazing human. There was a guy that worked for him at the time, Mario, and I wasn't even here 6 months. And he was like, hey, have you ever heard of Bunker Labs? And I was like, yeah, I've absolutely heard of Bunker Labs. And he's like, we're starting a chapter out here in Vegas. So it's funny how full circle I get reconnected back to Bunker Labs. And then we stood up the chapter here during the summer of 2019. Just as we were getting all the momentum to get everything going, COVID struck. So we've been forced to kind of promote that behind the curtain, but now with live events and stuff opening back up, I'm back to being an advocate for that again.
And it is a small world, because Mario actually called me about an hour before we had this conversation about meeting up with him and discussing with him. It literally always comes full circle. Just to get a gauge of how big Bunker Labs is, do you know an estimate of how many chapters there are across country?
Yeah, I believe, and there's been a lot of like just a few ones. I'm pretty sure we're like at 30 or 35. I should probably know that. It's funny because I was just back in Tulsa and I met with a big veteran organization out there. And this is one of the things about branding. Like a lot of people think that I started Bunker Labs.
Honestly, I thought that before this.
A lot of people do, but that happens a lot. The DJ company that I helped grow out in the Midwest, some people still think I own it. The pizza guy that I was talking about, I've had Mike Bausch on my show. He owns a bunch of pizzerias in Oklahoma. I never even really worked for his company, but people always thought that I worked there, or some people think that I might own it. So it's funny how that works. But yeah, so Bunker Labs in 35 cities, I think right now, and I can't confirm all the details on this, so I'm not really speaking on behalf of Bunker Labs, but one of our biggest sponsors is Chase, JP Morgan Chase, and I'm pretty sure they just signed a pretty big Happy Gilmore check, but this is specifically to move us into all 50 states.
Wow.
So that's a big push that we're working on for the next couple of years.
That is incredible. How would you describe the Veteran Entrepreneurship Network out here in Las Vegas?
I think it's primed and ready to be something huge. The interesting thing about Vegas is we are a global city, and there's so many people that come through this city for one reason or another. I think there's even more veterans that are kind of carried over from the Air Force Base that's close out here, Nellis Air Force Base. But there's also a lot of people that retire out here in these communities. So I think there's a lot more that I still haven't been able to reach yet. But there's more, just like everybody, there's more coming in every day because they see Vegas as that global destination city. I mean, everybody I meet, and this goes for anybody listening to the show or any of that stuff, I talked about it a lot on Clubhouse. I talk about it on my podcast too. Like if you're ever in Vegas, hit me up. I'll try and pick you up at the airport. I'll try to drop you off. If I can't meet for coffee or lunch, I'll at least, take a phone call and point you in the right direction and refer some of the stuff that you might not see on the strip or, that you might see more off. And that's a genuine offer. It's just because I love connecting with people and I love for them to have a great experience while they're here. Does it help me build my network? Sure. But it doesn't mean I'm ever going to go to Bumsville, Idaho and ask for a tour of your home town or anything like that. It's just, it's nice to know that that they're always there. And I've got some people that are like, hey, we're coming to Vegas again and again. And it's like, it's great to know and connect the dots.
That's the hospitality nature of Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Once you live here a few years, you understand the way of life of the Las Vegas locals, and you become a caretaker of sense, but you also want to point them in the right directions where they're not getting nickel and dimed by the corporations that govern the strip. And you want to point to them for some of the activities off the strip. And that's something that I've noticed recently is I've met with a bunch of content creators who've moved out here and they do Vegas content specifically. And they've been seeing an increase in demand of off-strip activities and more stuff focusing on the Arts District we're recording now and in the downtown area, because many people are beginning to... You know what? Summer is here. Football is about to start. Baseball has started. Basketball is going on. Every major championship is right around the corner. But you know what is not? A wild and hairy bush. Yes, that's right. Tame your pubes with help from our friends over at Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. I know they've been sponsoring the show for quite some time now. You guys are very familiar with this. Their 4th-generation performance package includes a brand new lawnmower. If an athlete treats their body like royalty, why not treat your pubes like Olympic gold? Fellas, do right by your balls and join the 2 million worldwide who trust Manscaped. It's been a little over a month now since Vegas has been fully opened. I've been to a concert at the brand new stadium out here. I went to a casino opening. I think that the world is ready to get back to force, especially out here in Sin City. But what you guys need to do is get ready and open yourself up to the Performance Package 4.0, which is from Manscaped. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find a handful of things. You'll find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver, ball deodorant, crop reviver, toner, plus 2 free gifts, some boxer briefs, which I love, I wear on the regular, and a Shed travel bag. All of these products in the Performance Package 4.0 has a handful of utility. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor. It has a 4,000 LED spotlight. The package also comes with the Weed Whacker to get right up in that nose to make sure that you could get out all of those prickly hairs and also save your ear from some dissatisfaction as well. Now hear me out, everybody. Use the code THEGUESTLIST, one word, the guest list, just like the podcast, over at manscaped.com to receive 20% off and free shipping. I have had dozens of friends order this product. I have not heard anything bad. I use it on the regular, especially when you're out here in Las Vegas getting ready to go out and have a good time. You want to make sure that your confidence is at an all-time high. Make sure you use the code THEGUESTLIST for 20% off and free shipping over at manscaped.com. Let's get back to the show, guys. Grow tired of the strip because of all of the additional fees between parking, resorts, and now they have a convenience fee and a surcharge fee and all these other things that are being established on it. But also from some of the events that I've been covering, like Tech in the Alley, your networking event that's coming up soon, we're seeing a dramatic increase in entrepreneurial networking driven events. And I had a VC that came on my podcast while I was at Tech in the Alley, which is the episode before this. And he talked about how there's a lot of attention surrounding entrepreneurs in Las Vegas specifically. And a lot of VCs are beginning to migrate money out here because obviously there's a lot of tax benefits, but you're literally on the foundation. So there's probably going to be a handful of winners that are in our area up here in the near future. Yeah.
The interesting thing about this kind of goes into why I raised my hand once again. Global Entrepreneurship Week, it all started from back on Clubhouse in the old Clubhouse days, like February. No, there was this conversation around let's make Vegas the next big tech hub, or let's make it another big venture. And it's interesting because we have all the capacity to do that. It really just relies on the marketing and how well the city's working together. For a lot of people, and I haven't been able to do the best job because it is a voluntary role working with Global Entrepreneurship Week, but I've seen how other communities have literally transformed who they are and what they do because they started working together. Tulsa is a perfect example, and that was the example that I used in that Clubhouse room 5 years ago. No one knew who Tulsa was. Anybody that did, it was an oil and gas town. Well, how is it that last summer when Elon Musk was making the decision for the next factory for Tesla, how was it Tulsa, Oklahoma, an oil and gas town, and Austin? And it started with back in 2017 when the mayor got elected. He made a commercial. It was actually one of my videographer friend, Lyndon, made the commercial for the city of Tulsa for Global Entrepreneurship Week. And it was just a 1.5-minute video talking about who they were and who they wanted to be. And his whole campaign was build it here. And when he started that, it started with one commercial, and then it started with the Tulsa Remote campaign. And it was all these different initiatives, but it took everybody working together because everybody was coming from cities where they needed a support system. So if somebody came with an idea, they could literally go through this factory of resources, and it worked. So that's what transformed the reputation, if you will, for somebody like Tulsa. Now, even though he picked Austin, since that time, there's been over 250 tech businesses that have moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, because the eyeballs were on that city. Well, the eyeballs have always been on Vegas. How do we transform the reputation of just being a party city to a place where you can start and grow a business? And part of that starts by us working together and showing that. So my mission for everything that I do is to connect the people of our city, so together we can show the world who we really are. And the best part is that works in every freaking city. Like every city is struggling with that at some way, shape, or form. And with that, it just takes people working together, and that normally happens by events.
It does. Do you think, since you've seen the rise of the entrepreneurship network in Oklahoma grow and some of these other cities, do you think this strip is a hindrance in terms of progress within Las Vegas because of the temptation that lies within it?
Yeah, I can see that. Honestly, I'm learning it too. Like, oh, what hotel do you live in?
Yeah.
And everybody thinks that, that we all gamble all the time and things like that. And it's not really the case. In fact, I didn't even put my first bet into a slot machine until I'd lived here for 2 years and 6 months. Right. And it was just because somebody I was gambling with, I was like, I haven't even done this yet. I threw it in.
The locals never go to the strip unless it's something for free.
Yeah, or unless I'm going to connect with somebody who can't get off the strip. Like I'll go there all the time. But yeah, I think as far as a hindrance, it can be, there is a lot of temptation. I remember whenever I was pulling into the city, and I'll be really transparent. I was going through a rough divorce. Resources weren't all there. Man, I drove a rental car out here one way with what I could fit in it. And I remember it was like, I think it's probably what it feels like for some people that like follow their dreams to go to like LA and sing or something. That's what it was for me because, the moral compass was dialed in on coming here for so long. But I remember this overwhelming sense of responsibility because I could feel people leaving this city every day, that this city is just chewed them up and spit them out. So that's where I can't help everyone. But what I do hope is that we can get the right people together that have the same vision for what we love about this city. And if we can bring them together and give them access to those resources, then that's one less person that drives away hating Las Vegas.
So true. Yeah. Growing up here, born and raised, an issue I see with Las Vegas, which I think is beginning to become mitigated because of COVID, and a lot of my colleagues have begun kind of looking introspectively and deciding that they want to do something differently than working a hospitality job for the next 30 years of their life. Although it is really good money, it's probably much superior. It's much vastly more superior in payout compared to any other 9-to-5 job that you could get in the country. But the issue was that I saw is that a lot of these employees who are on the strip, which is about 30% of Las Vegas, or 20 to 30% of Las Vegas, you'd make this a really nice compensation for your tipped job. But then on your off days, you'd go back out to the strip and you'd take that money and you'd spend it. And so it stayed in this closed loop system because of temptation. And I'm also a culprit of that. My first 2 years working Omni, I was the same, going out partying, spending this much money. And you get in this mindset of like, oh, I'll just make it tomorrow. I'll just make it tomorrow. I'll just make it next week. I'll make it back. The same thing with gambling and that mentality. And it wasn't until really I had a humbling moment where I was like, all right, what am I doing with my life? I'm just going out and partying, doing drugs constantly. Like, this is not getting me anywhere. But I think COVID has kind of accelerated that trend for entrepreneurs out here in Las Vegas to decide that, hey, we need to do something different because the Strip is becoming very corporatized. And now all these entrepreneurs and these tech employees from California are moving out here and buying up all the houses. And so I do think that over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see an explosion of entrepreneur endeavors because these tech employees who are buying up all the houses now get to work remote for the foreseeable future, but they're still making, $100,000 to $200,000 living in a state, saving all that money. So they're going to want to do something because they're going to be acclimated to Vegas, but it's not in their purview per se.
Yeah. So that brings a lot of opportunity for innovation. I think that's the biggest key in any community is, are we innovative, right? And what does that mean? It's like, are we creating things? I love Vegas. I love the world of hospitality. I've been able to share some really incredible time with remarkable people in that industry. One of my favorite people I did a lot of stuff with over the last couple of years is Lee Cockrell. He used to be the VP of operations for all of Disney, right? So I look at the world of hospitality through his lens, right? I love going to, whether it be corporate, whether it be private, I love going and having a great experience as a customer. And then I'll tell people about it. And then if it's a really great experience, I wonder what it's like to work there. And then I'll share that with people. And I just try to bring all that stuff to light. But what's interesting in this community, like a lot of communities, is it innovative? Are we being creative? Because one thing that COVID taught us was Vegas is not immune to being boarded up and shut down. That was the creepiest feeling ever. I couldn't even imagine growing up here and living here your whole life and driving around seeing that. It broke my heart just doing it. And I've only lived here a couple of years, but this is home. This is home for me. I'm going to be here for a long time. Like, it broke my heart. I picked up some friends that were in from Oklahoma just a few weeks ago, and we were driving right in front of Caesars by Omnia. And like, as we were driving, I was like, oh my gosh, look at this. And I showed him the story from my Instagram when that was completely empty. And it's like, not a person could be seen. And then randomly you'd see somebody like longboarding through there, which was like it was like a content creator's paradise down there, but still, that's what you see. You don't see all the effects that's had on the community since then. And there's still people that are struggling from it, trying to bounce back. We've lost great people that moved elsewhere, and we're just now starting to see some of the challenges with mental health issues that have been spawned from that experience. So it's not over. We've got to be able to diversify our economy. We've got to be able to build our community and stand strong no matter what.
Diversifying the Vegas economy has seemed to be on the list for decades. That's something Tony Hseih tried to tackle and faced some pushback. It seems like now, at least through Tech in the Alley and some of these networking events, that there's more resources out here in terms of the Harry Research and Technology Park, and just some of these startup incubators, Startup Nevada is assisting with that, things that you're doing, things that I'm doing. Yep. So it's bringing more attention because I'm having more audience members or friends even reaching out to me and saying like, hey, this is awesome what you're doing, but it's inspiring me to do something else because I'm tired of serving drinks and just being a slave to wage slavery. Yeah.
So there's two funny caveats that I've got to share. One is I love blank whiteboards. I love whiteboards because I'm a strategic planner. Like that's where I
got one right back there.
We go. That's how I make money, is strategic planning and implementation execution. But I love empty whiteboards because I always go write a quote and I just leave it. And I'm like, whoever comes in, it's funny, but I never said I was going to change the world, but I will spark the mind that does. And that's Tupac. Right. I think it's brilliant because I love, like, everyone's like, why do you do what you do? I just hope that it inspires somebody else to take action. Right. Because I do a lot of stuff. I do a lot of crazy stuff in all different directions. Sometimes people are like, seriously, like, how do you do what you do? How does it work? I was like, it's not like I'm rolling in all kinds of money. There's sometimes where there is no money, but I just do things because I know it's going to serve a greater purpose. So I love that quote. But one of the funny things, you mentioned Tony Hseih, and it really would be just a complete, total interview all on its own if I told you the whole story about coming here, visiting Zappos, and really the whole journey to get here. We made a video because you got to make a video to work at Zappos. For 2.5 years, I literally, everybody I ever met, we showed that video to, right? And that was like part of our whole core story. Well, it's been funny because I've only been here 2.5 years, and especially in the last year, as I've really been trying to bring different people together and get people to collaborate and start working together, it's bizarre to me, but there's been a few people that have kind of compared what I'm doing to Tony Hseih. And I'm like, well, first of all, rest in peace. It's an honor to be compared to that, but I want to be really candid. There's some things that Tony Hseih did that I could never do. That guy self-funded everything. If he woke up and said, you know what, I'm going to buy all the stoplights downtown and turn them into llamas. It doesn't matter if everybody agreed that that was a good idea or not. He already did it. He bought them like this morning as soon as he had the thought. And then now the stoplights are llamas. And everybody else can just deal with it. So that combined with, he didn't have an exit strategy and things like that, it almost kind of disassembled everything that he built, and he didn't build anything. I love the not asking for permission, but it doesn't have any staying power, especially since it wasn't built on a foundation of anything that anybody is now responsible for. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with that dream. But then on the other side, I do work with people, and sometimes it's really frustrating, but I'm not self-funded. I can't, I can barely pay to park sometimes downtown. I'm definitely not going to buy the streetlights. So when it comes to the opportunity to not self-fund or the lack of opportunity to self-fund everything, that means I have to get everybody working together. And the only way I know how to do that is to connect people through events and serve as many people as possible. But it's funny that there's already been that sort of connection point. It was actually somebody I talked to, I think at UNLV, whenever I spoke to their global entrepreneurship group. That was a comparison. I was like, I never thought of it that way, but all I can tell you is that I want it to stick, right? And some people would say that it wasn't even it was more of a disruptive, I can't remember what somebody calls it. It was a collision. He created more of a collision than he did an ecosystem. So I'm very driven on creating the ecosystem only because it's not predicated on me or any person. It's only predicated on a process or a place where people know that they can go and get the answers. If they have an idea, can I stand next to somebody who's creating a tech platform or somebody who wants to launch a bakery? And can I get funneled into the right place that I don't have to know the chief innovation officer? I don't have to know all these people or even have all of the answers of what my plan is. Somebody can put me through that process and let the idea come to life. I think that's the power of a true ecosystem.
And just as the universe operates, collisions must happen in order for action to unfold, right? That's how stars are made, with collisions of energy or something of that nature. You spoke about your love for whiteboards. On this metaphorical whiteboard that I'm about to present to you, at the top I'm writing Global Entrepreneurship Week, Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. What goes under it?
Oh, wow. Damn. I got to get real now. So it's important to look at what Global Entrepreneurship Week has done in other communities. Now, there's two communities that I love specifically that I've got a little bit more information from. Tulsa, obviously, because I've been part of what that transformation was, but I know what they were up against. But the gal who runs Global Entrepreneurship Week in Tulsa, she's been a great resource. But one of the most incredible facility or cities that this has really transformed is Kansas City. And I don't know if any of the listeners out there, if anybody is from Kansas City or if they've ever been to Kansas City, that's one of the best entrepreneurial ecosystems I've ever seen. My first exposure to Global Entrepreneurship Week was in Kansas City. I went when they had all their events, and it's insane. So if I had to put stuff underneath it, it's twofold, right? There's normally one culminating event where we get all of the people in the ecosystem together to essentially cut the ribbon. And what's great is this is being celebrated all over the world. In more than 180 communities around the world, people are cutting the ribbon for their Global Entrepreneurship Week. And a lot of times the Global Entrepreneurship Week brand and social media, they'll create spots. If we've got something really big that we want to show the world about Las Vegas, they can put us on their rotation that week. And it would be our commercial for the Super Bowl, basically. So there's one big culminating event, and then all of the different silos can host their own events. So I'm just going to say that like UNLV might host 2 or 3 events that week. You might host a couple of events that week because you're talking all about crypto. I might host one that's just veteran entrepreneurship stuff. Like there's all these different groups that can promote their events, but because we're all promoting each other's events through that one big umbrella, more people learn about it, more people know about it. And here's what I'm learning is there's a ton of people that are moving into this city every day, and they don't know why there isn't a 1 million cups. They don't know why there isn't a global entrepreneurship week. They don't know why there isn't all of these normal weekly things, because a lot of those things have been tried here, but there wasn't really anybody to, have the staying power to bring everybody together and work it out. So there's all these events that go on during the week, and then there's normally one big culminating event where we all band together again to really show, like, we put our banners and signs in the air. If I had a perfect world, that ribbon cutting and that culminating event would both be at Allegiant Stadium. And my vision for what I believe this city needs is we need that commercial. We need that sizzle commercial that really grabs people by the soul, that shows people we're not invincible. It shows people that we are a community and that we're more than just the Strip, right? And with that same level intention that the commercial did for Tulsa, it's like, we want you to build it here. And when we have that, and then we have a community and a process behind it, that's where people truly start to believe. That's where branding starts, right? It's not just, what happens in Vegas only happens in Vegas, but it's more of like my friend John, he actually sold that to the marketing agency that did it. But one of his favorite ones was come here, play here, stay here. I think that needs to be more of the focus for the community moving forward. So Global Entrepreneurship Week, as far as the whiteboard on that, it's who are the people that care about Las Vegas? Who are the people that care about entrepreneurship? And how do we bring all those people together and all fly the same flag for just 1 week?
Oh, that's awesome. So how I'm envisioning this is almost like the Olympics. There's an opening ceremony, a closing ceremony, and within Las Vegas itself, are the events going to be held in multiple locations, or is it generally confined to one spot like Allegiant Stadium? Yeah, no.
So I would know for a fact that the logistics behind Allegiant Stadium for all the events, that would be hard and expensive. Mm-hmm. The important thing is that it shows the diversity of our ecosystem. So there's plenty of what I call anchor points in our community. And an anchor point is basically, it's someone where somebody's standing up shop and they're really focused on promoting entrepreneurship in our community. Bunker Labs is one of those anchors. We were at the WeWork in Town Square. Now we're at the WeWork in Summerlin, but we have presence in both. Either one of those can be an ecosystem because Bunker Labs, an entrepreneurial program, can stand up events in both of those places. And sometimes it's just showing people a different part of the city, right? So the thing I loved about Kansas City was they had it in all kinds of places. A lot of their stuff were at the Kauffman Center for Entrepreneurial Research, but they had stuff all over the community because it is a community. What's been really challenging is I've just come on as a community organizer. Everything that I'm hearing is all the last year that was COVID. It was all virtual events. Now we're kind of paving the way for what this year's event could be. And that's just me, being ridiculously ambitious because I know that it started with a little micro commercial and then it started with everybody working together. And it's not something that we can overhaul overnight, but in the next year, just seeing the progress that Las Vegas has made as a community in the last year, it really blows me away to imagine what it could be in the next 2 years or 3.
Yeah. One of the major anchor points that I see in Vegas is UNLV, obviously being the premier educational institute out here. And then maybe if you want to stay off the Strip, you're coming maybe somewhere down here in the Arts District or even downtown. Fremont Street's a big anchor point. But then you go the existing area, downtown Summerlin is a big spot. Yep. You want to try to go to these community centers. Town Square is like another one. But the difference with Vegas is every anchor point, there's generally some sort of like entertainment or commerce attached to it, which is very different from the other cities.
Yeah. Well, the anchor points don't necessarily have to be geographic locations. It could be a person that believes what we believe, right? Mm-hmm. And that I'll follow that anywhere, right? You can tell me it's in North Vegas by, I don't even know, like Aliante Hotel. I've never been there, but if somebody said like, dude, there's people changing the game out there with that, like I'm going to go. And it's like, how can we help, right? How can we help bridge that gap between those anchor points? Because everybody in between can learn, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody in between can play. And we want, that's the whole thing. And we want to get more and more people involved. Personally, you know, I would love to see the global entrepreneurship community stand up here in Las Vegas, because it really is a global way that people know that we're more than just the Strip, right? And then when people come out here, people aren't just coming out here for the casinos or for all that stuff. Like they want to come to Blackfire and, you know, get use or like host an event there and talk about what they're doing in their community. Like it's a way to bridge the gap between all these communities, and all those communities have resources that will keep bringing tourism and all that stuff here, but it's also going to keep businesses firing up here as well.
Vegas is slowly becoming the experience capital of the world. And that the best way to integrate that is leveraging technology, but also the internet communities, because internet communities are very powerful. And I've begun to learn this as well through hosting this podcast. You never know who's listening to you, and you never know who you're going to impact in such a profound way. Sometimes your message hits somebody in a way that you just wouldn't expect, and it's so unique because you don't know their life and the things that they've gone through. So it's very interesting to see. But I do see some parts of Las Vegas have begun to adopt the content creator influencer model or whatever it is, because as I grew up, you don't see any Las Vegas local public figures, really. I guess the largest one is probably Jimmy Kimmel, but he did it the traditional TV producer route.
Right.
But now you can just do it just creating your own channel. And so the most of the internet community survive or surround gaming, gambling, the Strip news, but no one's really been talking about the local scene. And that's something both you and I are trying to command and conquer, divide and conquer in a sense. And the only way to do it is one conversation at a time like this. And it's the slowest grind upwards. But as we know, networks aren't just pertinent to conversations and personal networks. There's a thing called the network effect, where once you reach that network effect, you get escape velocity and the growth becomes exponential.
Yeah. It's been really interesting because I see it in this community different than all the other communities that I've lived in. When you talk about internet people and being a public figure on the internet, you still have real estate. Like it's not just, I don't mean just your internet real estate, like the website and things like that. You still represent a community that you're from. And this still is such a massive global like community in the world. Like, just to have a business in a Las Vegas zip code, that says a lot about your business. Like in a lot of smaller communities, like people, you are the option because you're from Las Vegas. Like I hate that. And that's shameless, like stab. That's actually part of the reason why I left Tulsa, is because at the time I got beat out on this contract for a thing, and somebody told me, and I had poured into the community, and it's not like I ever expect that I deserve everything, but when it was between me and somebody else, it was like, why not go with me? And they literally said, well, sometimes it's better if it's somebody from out of town with a briefcase. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go to another town, and whenever I do come back with the briefcase, it's going to cost you money to have dinner with me. You know what I mean? Like I can't, if you want to play that game, like we'll play games, but it is interesting because of the global reputation that Vegas has. I think it's no surprise that people that come here from the internet and stuff are catching that from all over, because and you're more likely to connect with your tribe because there's a good chance that somebody's going to be coming through town
Yeah,
I know 4 people that are coming to town this week on different days.
It only grows. Yeah, Vegas has, I think it's an average tourist visitation of about 40 million people. So many of those visitors consider Vegas their second home. So it is really becoming this international and transient city that is not just for retirement, but also to grow and build out a family, as we have seen.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, we've been talking about entrepreneurship this whole time. And before I get to the final question, I just want you to define entrepreneurship in your mind, because I know it speaks differently to different people. And so, yeah, how do you view entrepreneurship?
To me, it's taking an idea and turning it into income, right? Or for some people, it doesn't necessarily have to be income. It could be impact, right? But as long as you take that idea and turn it into something and see it come to life. And it's one thing for it to be a transactional thing where somebody, makes money or there even is something of impact, but it's also the currency there is, did it work? And if it's something that worked, then you can do it again and again and again, and you can show people how to do that. And if it sparks that interest for somebody else to say, I've got an idea, to me, that's what entrepreneurship's all about.
Boom. One final question. What does Las Vegas mean to you?
Man, it's Las Vegas to me is the place where everything is possible.
Boom. Quick, easy, straight to the point. It's literally the land of opportunity. That's usually what I get about 80% of the time. Everyone sees you can come out here, you can have a drastic impact on the community because it is so small, and we are on this foundational golden age era of culture out here in Las Vegas. Where do I send all the listeners and those that are watching on YouTube to follow you along your journey or get involved with any of your endeavors?
Yeah, the best place to find me is you can find me on LinkedIn. All the social media platforms is Dave Burlin. DaveMeansBusiness.com is going through a little bit of reconstruction with some new stuff coming up on the podcast soon. But DaveMeansBusiness.com is where you can find me.
Maybe one day we'll release the episode with me in it.
We'll just say, rumor has it, it'll be one day very soon.
Yes.
One day very soon.
Yeah. I have a list of like all the podcasts that I've gone on that haven't been released. And I'm like, man, this one with Dave is just sitting there. We might have to do another one sometime here in the future. But
we will.
Thank you for coming on, man. I've been looking forward to doing this for such a long time. You're such a staple within the local entrepreneur network. Your name gets brought up a ton. And now through this conversation and those listening, I hope that they can follow you along your journey, because without a doubt, you're going to have a major impact. And I'm so excited to participate in the Global Entrepreneurship Week. I know that this could be something truly iconic for the city and what it's needed.
I love it, man. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next time.